Hello there, welcome to Season 3 of the Coming Down to Earth with Spirit podcast with me, your host, David Hale. In this season, we'll continue talking about all things to do with mediumship, the spiritual world, but also answering your questions to help you on your own spiritual journey or mediumship development. In this new season, I'll also be introducing some new horoscope readings done month by month per star sign, so do keep your ears out for those. But without further ado, let's get into this episode and I'll see you on the other side. Well, hello there, you lovely lot. I hope you're doing fabulously well, and thank you as always for tuning in to my podcast. And this episode has come about based on a suggestion from one of my gorgeous followers in Canada, Cindy Woodside. So Cindy, if you're listening, hello to you, my darling. I know Cindy does listen to all of my podcasts and actually does leave me some comments and some reviews as well. So Cindy, you are appreciated for your input into this podcast as well. And Cindy had asked me if I'd possibly do an episode on the light and the dark. So this episode is possibly going to be a short one, purely because I wouldn't say I'm an expert on that kind of subject. So again, as always, this episode will be based on my views and opinions on what I understand and from what I've experienced or not experienced. But it might be interesting to talk about it, and you never know, I might even surprise myself with what I come out with. So at this moment, I'm relying on Spirit to give me some inspiration as I talk about this topic. So the first thing I would say from my own perspective and how I work, I would say that I only work in the light when it comes to mediumship, actually just in life in general. And everyone I know in mediumship who I am friends with or who I've worked with or what have you, in my opinion, they work in the light as well. Meaning that we do this work for the good of all concerned. I think that's probably another way to put it. Because, ultimately, you could say that we're light workers, which is a term which a lot of people in this industry use, which is, it's not a term that I like to use at all, because to me, one, it sounds really airy-fairy, but secondly, I'm not changing fucking light bulbs for a living. I'm working with spirits, and so I don't call myself a light worker. I'm a medium. If people want to call themselves that, that's absolutely fine, but it's not a term that I would put on myself. Anyhow, so if you look at that term in itself, light worker, it does suggest that as mediums, we do work on the more positive, lighter side of things, which, in my opinion, is what mediumship should be. As I said a moment ago, it's about working with the highest good of all concerned, being both the spirit world and the clients. But it's also remembering what mediumship is about and why we do it. It's about bringing healing. It's about bringing someone that sense of peace or comfort or helping someone through their grief in some kind of way. So it's all the positive stuff, and I'm not purposely sitting here trying to be all airy fairy, because those of you that follow me know that I'm not that way when it comes to this work. But that's what it is. It should be done in a positive way for positive reasons to help people. There shouldn't be anything dark, if you want to put the term in it. There shouldn't be anything dark about it. Mediumship should never be a scary thing. It should never be something that distresses someone or upsets someone. It should be an all-round positive or uplifting, healing experience. But obviously that's for the client to judge, because they take from it what they take from it. But as mediums, we have that responsibility to, if you want to say, work in the light and to bring, again, that positive stuff to the client. So because I work that way and people I know work that way, I would say that I have never worked in the dark. But I know that there are people that do work in the dark, unfortunately. What do I mean by that? My perspective on it is, or my perception of someone working in the dark, is someone who comes at it from a more negative point of view, where they are bringing through or perceived to bring through evidence which is particularly negative, and what they do actually distresses the client. And I've heard many a story of that, and I'll give you an example in a second, but that's not what it should be, because people who work in the dark, I mean, without even opening their mouth, it tells me everything I need to know about them. If that's what they think mediumship is, or if they think that's what the spiritual world is about, is working on that darker level, then that tells me everything about the character that I need to know. So the example I was going to give, this is just my personal opinion, and people might disagree, but I have had, and I've mentioned these examples before in my book, but also I think I've mentioned them on previous episodes, is that I had a lady come to me who has been following me for a long time, but had gone to another medium for a reading. And this lady, actually, there's two examples popping in my head. This first example, this lady said, lady gone for a reading, and the medium or psychic, I don't really know who they were, picked up on the fact that this lady's grandfather was sick, right? Which the client confirmed. This medium psychic then proceeded to tell this lady that her grandfather would be dead in 4 months' time. So what happened was, as you can imagine, that client left that reading feeling nothing but distress, and almost not put her life on hold, but for the 4-month period which she was told about by this so-called psychic medium, she had done nothing but stress and worry, because she was almost waiting those 4 months for her granddad to die, and he didn't. So that psychic, that medium, basically wasted 4 months of that woman's life, but also with negative news, which we shouldn't be giving as mediums, right? So in my opinion, I mean, it's not horrendous. Well, some people it will be horrendous, but there's worse things that someone who works in the dark could do. But for me, that is an example of working in the dark, because if you are an ethical medium or psychic, you do not give news like that. Even if you pick that information up, it doesn't mean that needs to leave your mouth for someone else to hear, right? So I've never ever given someone a death notification, if you want to call it that, because that's not how I operate. And I think that is the distinction here. It's how you as a human, or you as a person, or you as a medium, how you operate, what level you operate on. So because my intention is always to bring through evidence of survival along with healing and upliftment and humour, I automatically work in the light, because that's the reason I do this work. My intention is always to help people. But if you are someone, or if there is a medium who has the intention of bringing through whatever they want to bring through, no matter who says it, where it comes from, what the information is, then you're coming from a different place, from a different mindset, and ultimately you could then automatically be working from a place of dark, not light, if that makes sense what I'm trying to say. So it's very much, I feel, working in the dark, working in the light, very much also depends on the character of the medium or psychic that is doing the work in the first place. And so the other example I was going to give was, I had another lady come to me, again very distressed, after having a reading from another so-called psychic medium. This lady had sadly miscarried her child, and it was quite far into the pregnancy from what I remember. And this medium psychic proceeded to tell this lady that the baby is stuck in almost a purgatory state because of the way it passed and the conditions around it. Now, that is an horrendous thing to say to a mother or to anybody, that your baby is stuck. Because, I mean, even saying it now, I can feel my blood boiling. Firstly, I mean, I can't even speak because I'm just shocked myself from just remembering that story. But the first thing is, one, it's a horrendous thing to say to anybody, right? And number two, I don't believe that's the case anyway. I personally don't believe in purgatory, right? I don't, because if you believe in purgatory, it means you've got to believe in heaven and hell. That's just my opinion. I don't believe in that either. I'll talk about that in a minute, actually. But to say that a baby is stuck somewhere, I mean, that is not, to me, is nothing but working in the dark. Because why? What kind of mindset do you have to say that kind of information to somebody, to a parent, to a mother who has lost a baby that she craved for, that she was looking forward to welcoming in to her life? I mean, what can I say about that apart from despicable behaviour on part of that psychic or medium who said that? So that for me is working in the dark. Again, I'll repeat what I said a minute ago, is that, I mean, yes, there could be other more horrendous things that could be said. Not that it wasn't horrendous, you understand. But I think some people, when we think about working in the dark, we think about connecting to murderers and paedophiles and all that kind of business, right? But that's not what we're talking about. I think any negative intention that is used by a psychic or medium, for me, that goes into the dark territory straight away. So that is just my view on it. And with both of those ladies, I mean, the unfortunate thing is I couldn't undo what those so-called psychic mediums said to them, because they did both come to me for reassurance or to almost undo what was said. But by that point, it was too late, because the words that were said were already in the minds of these poor women. So that seed had already been planted by those people who had said that to them. And unfortunately, I wasn't there. I don't even know who those mediums were, and they were quite well-known mediums. What I've been told, they didn't give me the name, and frankly, I don't want to know who they are. But they advised me that they were quite well known, especially on social media, and that's what was said to them. And so that's a whole other story which I could go into. Actually, I don't know, I might do. I might just mention that it just goes to show that just because someone, a medium or psychic medium, whatever you want to term them as, is very popular on social media, does not mean they have any ethics. Does not mean that they are a great medium. Just because I've got a load of followers, that to me, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, I'd love to have loads more followers on my page, absolutely, but I'm not number focused in that way. But having loads of followers like that, I mean, that to me makes no difference to my ability. My ability is my ability. It is as it is, right? Not everyone's going to gel with my mediumship. Some people will. But I don't need loads of followers like that to validate that, although it'd be nice to have the numbers. But it goes to show, and I know other mediums are in the same position as me, great mediums, but we don't have a large following, because these other arseholes out here who have a large following, for whatever reason, are giving information like that. And actually, I'd rather have a small following and work ethically as I work, rather than have a large following and just thinking I can say whatever I like whenever I like to people. Because again, that's not what it's about. And that might link back to the previous episode where I talked about the value in mediumship. Is value in mediumship being lost because it's being too diluted by all these mediums, so-called mediums out there, who are giving information like that, and people are believing it or not, and then turning off of mediumship because of the horrendous things that they hear? So is their mediumship losing its credibility because you've got arseholes out there like this that are saying things like that? Doesn't make sense what I'm trying to say. I don't know if I'm even making sense to myself, but might just a bit of a ramble there. But it's just, yeah, horrendous things that do go on. And yeah, I'd say it doesn't quite make sense to me why they've got all these not millions of followers, a bit of exaggeration, but thousands upon thousands of followers when they're saying things like this. But there you go. So yes, these poor ladies, as I was saying, I could only give them my view and opinion on it from my belief. But again, whatever I said, I mean, one of the ladies did say to me, that's really reassured me. But again, that seed was already planted by that previous medium who said things like that. So we have to be very careful. So I'm really big on ethics, and anyone that's worked with me or has been one of my students knows that I do go on about that a little bit, the ethics behind mediumship, because it's so important. We have a huge responsibility on our shoulders because people, when they're in a certain state of grief or vulnerability, whatever you want to call it, they hang on to every word that you say because they want to know that they're not alone, that their loved ones are still around, that their loved ones are still with them, looking over them. So that's why we have to be very, very careful about what we say as mediums. Now let's talk about the light and the dark. I was asked this question at a demonstration the other day, once I'd finished, and it kind of links to, I guess maybe what Cindy was getting at as well, is about, the dark side of it, is there evil out there? Because that's another question that I get asked as well about the spirit world. Does evil exist in the spirit world? Have I ever connected to any dark or negative people? So again, the first thing I will say is that no, I don't, because I only work in the light, so I don't and I don't want to connect. So again, it's where don't want to connect to those evil people, shall I say first. So again, it's where my intention is. My intention is always to work with your loved ones in the spirit world. Sometimes maybe your guides, but that kind of energy is what I want to work with. I don't want to connect to Jack the Ripper or Hitler or those horrible people that once lived on this earth. I don't want to go there. Because one, it brings no value to me or to my work, and I just don't want to connect with that kind of energy, right? So no, I don't. I've never connected to anybody on that kind of level. Never. But again, to answer the question, does evil exist in the spirit world, or are there demons and that kind of thing? The first thing I'll say is I don't believe in demons. I believe that society, going back a number of hundreds of years, have created that word to distinguish between the good and the bad. I don't know. But like the word ghost doesn't come from the spiritual community. Ghost has been made up. The word ghost has been made up, created, I would say, by people in society. It's not a spiritual, it's not a mediumship thing or a spiritual thing. It's been a made up word. And it's a bit like linking to that again. I can go off all kind of tangents here, bear with me. People also ask, do I believe in heaven and hell? And my answer is no, which might sound strange, as I grew up Catholic and I was always told about heaven and hell. If you're good, you go upstairs. If you're bad, you go downstairs. But I don't believe in that either. So come back to the evil part. So demons, do I believe in them? No. Do I believe that evil spirits exist in the spirit world? How do I put this? I will say, yes, I do, but not for the reasons you might think. So as I said, I've never connected to anybody evil, I don't feel, in the spirit world. So, I've never been frightened. I've never had a scary experience. I've never had a dark entity attach themselves to me. Nothing like that at all. But the reason I do believe that evil exists in the spirit world is because everything has an opposite, as I've said before. And where you've got good, you have to have bad, right? But it's not just that. It's not just that reason. If you look at the world of spirit and what we believe as mediums, we believe, that when we all die, we all go to spirit, we all go to the same place, right? Because we're all human, we've all lived on this earth, so we're going to all go up to the spirit world. But on this earth, there are good people and there are some bloody horrible people, right? There are some evil, nasty people that live now, but have also lived in the past. So I come back, to people like, I always use Jack the Ripper as a go-to. But you've got people like Jack the Ripper, like Hitler, like all those other evil people that once lived, they also go to spirit, whether we like it or not, or whether we want to understand it or not. They still go to the spirit world because, like us, they're still a human being. So they will still go to the spirit world. So therefore, when they go to spirits, it means that there's also evil in the spirit world. But with the caveat of, they do not mix and mingle with your loved ones in spirit. So Jack the Ripper is not up there having a nice cup of tea with your loved ones and then slashing their throat, right? That's not happening. So my belief is, and this is where I feel terminology is important, and the words that we use or terms that we use versus the terms that other religions use. So I'm going to stick with Catholicism because that's what I know. So my belief and what I have studied and what I have read is that the spirit world, when we say we go to spirit, the spirit world it's more than just one place. It's more than just one level. It's not just one big old room where all of our loved ones are together, right? There are different levels within the spirit world. You have the level on which your loved ones are on. You have higher levels where we say you have the pure light beings, the angels, spirit guides and whatever else. And then we have the lower levels. And the lower levels, I feel, are reserved for those nasty, evil people which once lived on this planet, right? And so, therefore, they're on different levels, and therefore they are not mixing and mingling. If my understanding is, once you get to spirit and you're on a certain level, there is no regressing. You don't go back down the levels. You can only progress in spirit. And therefore, your loved ones, your family members, will not be mixing and mingling with those evil spirits that are in the spirit world. Now, if you look at it from a terminology point of view, if I look at that term, heaven and hell, when a Catholic says, oh, your loved ones are in heaven, to me, that is the spirit world. Which I don't know why, but people don't seem to get it. Because obviously Catholics don't believe in mediumship, and I know that. So when they say, oh, there's no such thing as spirit world, and I think, well, what do you think I'm talking about when you say they're in heaven? It's the same place, but we're just using a different terminology. So that's my belief, that when we go to spirit, we are going to heaven, although I do not use heaven as a terminology. Now, when a Catholic says there's a hell, I believe that where those evil spirits are in the spirit world, those lower levels, which I've just talked about, to me, that's our version of hell. So when a Catholic says, oh, they're in hell, to me, yes, they are. But in my terminology, they're just in the lower levels of the spirit world. So I guess not just with Catholicism, but other religions as well, we are all kind of talking about the same thing, but we are just using different terminologies. But yet at the same time, spiritualists, mediums are being, what's the word I'm looking for? We're being thought of as being deluded or mad or completely talking out of our arses, when actually we are just talking about the same thing. So actually there is no need for a divide between us and other and more organised religions out there, because it is just the same thing. It's just the way we view it, just a different terminology that we put on each of these things. So yeah, that's the other thing I just wanted to say there, because again, that question was on my mind as well about, is there evil? So yeah, I mean, look, evil exists everywhere, whether you're in spirit world or on this planet, right? And the reason I believe that there is those lower levels in spirit, not just from what I've read, but also when we go to spirit, we don't suddenly become angels. So although we always say spirit is a place of peace, it's a place of contentment, it's a further place of learning, you don't suddenly become an angel, become cherubic overnight just because you've gone to spirit. If you did evil deeds on this planet, then you go to a place in spirit where you have to atone for those things. And like I said in the previous episode, is that, according to the principles of spiritualism, there is one which does state, compensation and retribution hereafter for all the good and evil deeds done on this earth or on this planet, wherever the terminology is there, which again means that if you have done those evil deeds, there will be retribution for you when you get to spirit. So don't ever think that people that have done evil on this planet do not get away, that they get away with it, because they do not. They will pay for it on the other side. So I don't know if I've got much more to say on this topic, actually. I think I probably said all I can say on the topic. I'm sure there are other people out there who might be more knowledgeable about the dark side, but as I say, I've never worked in the dark. I have no intention of working in the dark, if that's how you want to term it. And so my knowledge might be limited, but I feel my opinion is still worth giving, just to give people something to think about. So yeah, I think that's it. I think I'll wrap it up here. Thank you very much, Cindy, for your suggestion to talk about this topic. I hope he answered your questions and you found it useful yourself, and for anyone else that is listening as well. But like Cindy and like Karen also, who provided me the question for the previous episode, if any of you have any topics that you would like me to talk about, discuss, give my opinion on, or simply just a question, again, please do email me at davidhmedium@outlook.com, or leave a comment in the comment section of this podcast, and I will pick that up and I will turn your question or comment into an episode. So I'm going to be quiet now and let you get on with the rest of your day. Thank you as always for listening, and I'll see you in another episode. So that's it for this episode. What do you think? I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, if you could leave me a review to tell me what you thought about it, it really does help me when it comes to creating new episodes. But also, if you could share out the episodes, share out the podcast, that would really help me as well to reach more people. But if you do have a spiritual topic or a question you'd like me to talk about on another episode, please do feel free to either email me or to message me via my Facebook page, and I will take that topic and question into consideration and turn it into a podcast episode. But as always, thank you very much for listening, and I'll speak to you all soon.